Let's take a look at a research guide called Geography, Geomatics and Environmental Studies. You can find research guides under Research Help, Research Guides and Librarians from the homepage of the library. If we click on that, we'll go and see that research guides have been organized by discipline or by theme. This research guide is found under Arts and Humanities. And if you scroll down, you'll see it here. If we open it up, we'll see that it has many different tabs, including the Home tab, the Getting Started tab, Finding Articles, Cartographic Resources, Geospatial Data, Census, Citing, and Links. We're going to cover all of these tabs in this overview, except for Cartographic Resources and Geospatial Data. These actually point to other research guides, and I'm going to cover those in other videos. On the home page, you'll find my information, my contact info, picture of myself, and usually you would find not only my email, but also my office and my phone number. Other relevant guides that touch on this one as well include Earth and Environmental Sciences, Cartographic Resources, Data and Statistics, and Biology. I would recommend that you check these out for additional resources that could also be relevant. So under Getting Started, this assumes that you're just starting off on your project. However, you may also want to check this out even if you've already started, because it'll have some useful tips and maybe a few additional resources that could help you. For example, it kind of gives you an idea of where to start. And not only that, it explains how to prepare your search strategy. And this is an iterative process. It's not the kind of thing that you should just do once and then never change. Typically, in a research project, like a literature review or a thesis, you'll define your research question or topic, you'll identify key concepts and keywords, you'll build your search, you'll run that search, and then you'll evaluate your results. Now, as I mentioned, this is not necessarily linear, so sometimes you'll run your search and then you'll find out that you have only 4 results, or maybe you'll have 40,000. And so you'll have to go and refine and rethink which concepts or which keywords to use. And when you go and build your search, that's when you might use things like brackets or parentheses or ands and ors, as we'll see in a moment. And these can all impact the number of results that you're going to get. And when we say results, we usually refer to articles, conference proceedings, it could be books, it could be ebooks, it could be any number of things, but that are relevant to your research. And you can, again, filter those things out. If you're only interested in peer-reviewed articles, then you can filter out for peer-reviewed articles. Sometimes finding synonyms can be a little bit difficult, so that falls under the keywords. Sometimes you may want to search more than just the one word that you're looking for. And so one way that might help you find more synonyms is by using one of these tools that we have over here, such as the thesaurus, GraphWords, VisiWords, DeepL. I'd mentioned before that you may want to use and, ors, nots, brackets, and asterisk. This is an example of how to use those and what they're used for. These are called Boolean operators, the and, or, and not. There are more resources on how to use these on the library website. Just search for Boolean operators when you go back in the library homepage. You can search for Boolean when you go up here. You can also find these useful links for additional background information, and I'd recommend that you check these out if these seem to be relevant to your study. To find articles, we usually have a list of key databases that we would recommend for you to start with. So Omni being the library catalog, and it has a lot of different material that you can search in there. You can also filter by resource type. You can use keywords, etc. But what's in Omni isn't necessarily, you're not necessarily going to find everything. So that's why we recommend also searching in other databases as well. So GeoBase is one that's quite focused on geography, and also some environmental studies. Scopus and Web of Science are quite large. And for example, Scopus has over close to 13,000 journal titles and millions upon millions of articles. Web of Science is also huge. So you'll tend to find something, usually if you search in these, on most questions that you might have in this topic. If you're also looking for additional databases that could be relevant, these are some that we've identified. I'm going to skip again cartographic resources and geospatial data, since I'll be covering those in greater detail later. Under census, you'll find information on the census itself. So the census program being offered every 5 years by Statistics Canada and gives kind of a rolling portrait of the country. Not only the country though, not only the entire country, but also the provinces and the cities and subregions. Census products, there's a number of them, and we've put some of them here. These include census profiles, census highlight tables, analytical products, you name it. I would recommend that you check these out one by one to kind of see how they differ. The last census was taken in 2016, so there'll be another one in 2021. Beyond 2020 is an online portal where all the census data has kind of been put, but in such a way that can be shared. And so confidential information has been preserved, which often means that things will have been aggregated. So certain variables such as income, even age, and geography will have been aggregated to certain levels. So an income would be probably an income bracket instead of knowing a specific number, that kind of thing. If you're curious about learning more about Beyond 2020, you can look at these links. The Canadian Census Analyzer is actually a great place to start if you're looking to play around with census data. It comes from the University of Toronto and essentially offers the census profiles as a checklist of sorts, where you can choose which variables you want to include by census year and by census geography. We also have all the different boundary files for the census for all of these different census years, kind of in one convenient spot for you if you're looking to do some mapping or some GIS. We also have videos for those of you who are interested in joining census data to boundary data and how to do that. And as always, feel free to reach out to me if you need help. I mentioned census geographies earlier. There are many of them, and sometimes it can be hard to know what's the difference between census tracts and dissemination areas, or postal codes and forward sortation areas. Well, postal codes, I should say, aren't exactly an accepted Statistics Canada boundary. However, the other ones are, and I think that kind of highlights how it can be so complicated. Sometimes these boundaries were created by different agencies for different purposes, so they don't always nest within one another perfectly. So this here, we kind of decided to put all of the boundaries over one another in order to make it easier to visualize. When selecting at which level of granularity you would like your data, always consider that the smaller the units, the smaller the regions themselves, the fewer the level of detail that you're going to get from your data. Because otherwise, you could start to cross variables and start to identify, the family down the street, which Statistics Canada would never allow. So variables would either be suppressed or aggregated to a point where you just won't ever be able to know that level of detail. We also offer some tips on when choosing census geography. Citing is always important when you're writing a paper or thesis or anything. You have to make sure that you're not plagiarizing and that the words and thoughts that are not your own are being cited for who came up with them. So how to do that properly, you can look at this tab, look at the different citation styles that are available. You can look at some of these links that we have that are quite useful. This one shows you a PDF of different ways to cite maps of different types that can be useful. Even geospatial data, we'll show you how to cite that, provide some examples. There's also citation management software such as Zotero that we really recommend. It will help you organize all of your references and can do amazing things like create your bibliography kind of automatically. Although we'd still recommend that you kind of verify that, but it can save you a lot of time. And it's just a good way to stay organized. So if you're curious about different citation management software, you can check that out. There's also examples of different citations here that we've provided. I mentioned geospatial data earlier. This is an example of how to cite that. And let's look at the links, one for physical geography. So for those of you who are more interested in that area, you can look at biogeography, some additional links, climatology, geomorphology, GIS, glaciology, hydrology, and polar regions. For the human geographers, if you're interested in cultural geography, economic geography, environment, medical geography, urban geography, tourism and leisure, or other that relate to human geography, feel free to check out these links as well. Thanks.